Hello again. So, 3 years of insanity caused by an idealistic psychopath in Russia. And let's look at this. This is from the past, 7 years ago. Some ambassador from the USA who was a Dutchman. He has a Dutch surname, Hoekstra, and as someone called him in the comments, an economic refugee. He tried to get a better life, possibly did, but in that case, he made some really moronic comments that politicians are being burned in the Netherlands. What the hell are you talking about? Dutch reporters tell U.S. ambassadors, this is the Netherlands, you have to answer questions. But really, that's not true. In the Netherlands, politicians also do not answer questions if they don't want to. They will just walk away, or he won't, or they won't accept any talk, the in-depth talk. I mean, things like that. Yeah, if there's journalists and they're granted access to politicians in general, yeah, they can just skip your questions. Same thing has happened. In particular, you saw this with the Biden's administration, that the press secretary just doesn't answer questions. But it's typical for politicians everywhere. It's nothing to do with the Netherlands or US, or there's something different. Okay, let's go to this. Sending him to represent the USA as an ambassador in the Netherlands feels like an insult to me. Trump does that. Insult our allies, lick the boots of dictators, murderers, and the enemies of our country. This is just another example of his walking disaster of a presidency. And I never really followed news, but one thing I saw is that he does do certain things that he promised. And I thought, oh, well, that's an interesting difference with most politicians who never do what they promise. In the Netherlands, forget about it. They always say, yeah, we're going to do that, and nothing ever happens. It's like it doesn't matter also which side you choose. Nothing ever changes. It just continues along in the way that the things are going. So this is 5 years ago. And here is something. Wait a minute. I think that Trump insults his freelancing NATO allies. That's also interesting, because that's exactly what happened now, of course. And now, 4 years ago, and wow, your comment aged well 4 years ago. It really aged well now. Jesus. 4 years, yeah. What? Let's go back. Licks the boots of dictators. Putin, murderers. Putin really it's by proxy, but he causes hundreds of thousands of deaths. And the enemies of our country also Putin, because Russia is an enemy, because of the stated goals. Look also at all the rhetoric coming out of the US, Russia, but also the US these days. It's ridiculous. You can almost say that the US is using the same thing. Yeah, almost. No, they actually are. They are using the talking points of the Kremlin, all the lies and stuff. And someone says, "Yeah, why?" Oh, let's go to this one. Is also interesting. It's about atrocious, appalling, and some guy says. This will be the first time in U.S. history when the president focuses on getting war reparations from the victim of the aggressor. America today is also. I don't think you understand what war reparations are. What a moron. This is a propagandist or right-wing and social guy who agrees with Trump. He says, the conflict's happening all around the world and affects EU more than it does the US. Oh, really? Really? Look at inflation, etc. Look at all the things that are going on that have caused problems in local trade, not working as nicely as it could. And of course, Trump is doing the same. He's just making things worse. He isn't smart. And of course, America signed a deal, Budapest Memorandum, protects Ukraine if they give up the nukes. And you say, yeah, or especially the Russians. You can say it, but Russians do say it. Yeah, they weren't actually Ukrainian. Well, why not? It's Soviet Union, it's all the same. They were placed in Ukraine, so they belong to Ukraine, or belonged to Ukraine. And yeah, there were no the trigger and the guidance system for anything. If they were on rockets, for example, were always on in Russia, but the Ukrainians would be able to reverse engineer or create something new. If you look at things, a lot of the people who actually created things were Ukrainians created in the engineering thing and developing things, etc. If you look at, for example, the Soviet space program, it was Korolev who was from Zhytomyr in Ukraine, and there's a small space museum there in Zhytomyr, which is interesting, where you have some space capsules, not used, I think, but spare ones, or maybe for training or things like that. But they are real, and it's pretty interesting to see that. And this is also interesting. Do you realize that if Ukraine loses the war and gets what, no one can guarantee that a NATO country will be next on this? Yeah, he said it himself. Baltic countries are next, and Poland. And then he will use his nuclear blackmail again, which has worked to delay and minimize weapon supplies to Ukraine. So yeah, he will do that again. He does not care about people. He does not care about consequences, because he's an idealistic psychopath. He said he cared about Russians in the Donbass, and he cared so much about them that he killed hundreds of thousands of Russians in total, including a lot there in the Donbass, and everyone there got conscripted, I think, all the men of certain age. From what was stated, it's an absolute shit show. It's same now in the USA, that this is really going to go bad, and Trump does not realize it. It could flip. And let's see, she is interesting. Her channel, interesting videos. A Russian who lived, I think, for 20 years or so already in the USA, but as she said herself, for only since the war started, she cut all ties with Russia and started to properly learn English, which is weird. I mean, if you live in a country, you should learn the language. But anyway, she has some very interesting videos, and someone made a statement about the future of the USA because of, yeah, Trump, of course, and but it was a while ago, or before he made these completely insane accusations of Zelensky and Ukraine being the cause of the war. And she said, yeah, the USA will be okay. And I think the USA is not necessarily okay at all. Firstly, politics, but also the media are a complete shit show on both sides. The left completely insane on certain topics, the right completely insane on other topics, and there's no search for truth, there's no normality. In the media, it's exactly the same thing. These are completely worthless, all these channels. You can watch them on certain topics and not on other topics. And then let's go to this. Bill Browder.
Do you think that what's in it for the US, Bill? What is in it to have this narrative completely flipped and him being cozying up to Putin and therefore cozying up to, yes, those evil countries?
Well, you ask a question in which there is no answer. There is no reason. There's no national interest for the United States to do this, and so it's purely what's in it for Donald Trump. And I guess time will tell. But perhaps there's a business deal to be done, or perhaps there's some strange affinity that he wants to be a dictator and wants to be like Putin.
It's not it at all, as I described in my video. Why do Trump and his cronies cozy up to and use the rhetoric of Russia? That is because using the rhetoric of Russia is the easiest way to blame someone, end it, and force an ending on the situation. They think that's the easiest way. It'll be, however, it will, however, have really bad consequences in future. But someone like Trump does not look at the future. He says such incredibly stupid things. Someone made a comment about, I'm sick of this lying sack of shit. On a thumbnail of a video I saw, I did not watch it. I don't. Yeah, it's not really necessary. I don't really want to. I limit my intake of stupidity per day. Anyway, it is. He just uses it. He does not care whether it's true or not. And he wants to force a deal. Why? Because then he won't have to spend money on Ukraine. That's it. So what is it, the advantage for the USA? To spend less money. That's it. It's very simple. And of course, to gain status, as I'm the one who ended this war. But if you end this war in a bad way that leads to worse consequences, you're going to be remembered as the one who possibly destroyed the USA's reputation, just like as I predicted in 2022. Putin is the guy who destroyed Russia. That's going to be his legacy. Unless, of course, Trump gives him full support, including economic support. But even if he does not give economic support, for example, to Russia, which would be absolutely insane, or even military support, but then if the EU gives Ukraine help to protect their border as well, and as I mentioned, I think I mentioned or may have mentioned that people in the US military realized that Ukraine has cut down Russia, which was a threat and still is. And you could see that also about their talk about multipolar worlds and ending the US dollar hegemony. Ukraine has completely, almost entirely removed the threat of Russia and crippled the economy as well at the same time. Or they didn't do it, but that was it together, of course, with the sanctions. But the combination has caused the total economic decline because of a lot of the effort that goes on has to go to war efforts, to producing stuff. So the total of sanctions plus the hacking down of the Russian military by Ukraine has caused also their economy to be almost crippled. And a total collapse is possible, as he said. And I think this year, middle of this year, end of this year maybe, it would have been finished already much longer ago, the war, if not Russia had the vast stocks of old Soviet equipment, tanks, etc. But because they don't have enough equipment still now, you see all the craziness going on on the battlefield with people with motorcycles or even bicycles doing this or that. They're crazy stories. So I was looking for a video where I couldn't find it again. I didn't watch it, but I was thinking about watching it. But it was, I think, 2 years ago that I saw it. It was about a warning about Trump. Maybe it was longer ago. But I think about that time. Maybe it was to warn for the past elections, but maybe it was already older and for the earlier elections. I don't really remember. I watched briefly, or I read briefly the description, which stated that there were people, also someone who, a relative of Trump, and they wanted to, yeah, I think it was a video, not a book. It would have been possible, but this is what I came to. Donald Trump has 3 mental disorders. And this is the book, The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump, 2017 book, edited by Bandy X. Lee, forensic psychiatrist. And Lee maintains that the book remains strictly a public service. Yeah, that's one of the issues I have with psychologists and psychiatrists. They have this insane requirement not to give professional opinions about public figures without examining them in person. You don't need to. If you have enough material from someone speaking, then you can completely analyze that person. In-person examination, it adds nothing. The authors maintain that pointing out danger and calling for an evaluation is different from diagnosis. It actually isn't. It's complete nonsense, but they say that to protect themselves from the consequences, otherwise your license will get removed. And for me, it doesn't matter because I'm not a psychologist, but I know psychology better than anyone I see. In the sense that I can understand everything. I can also predict certain things that people will do. For example, about Putin, why he does what he does. That's completely logical. He doesn't care about the truth. He cares about himself and his standing, how he's viewed, and he thinks that everything he does, he does it to make himself also feel better. That you can see that from the way he talks about himself. I created this, I did that, and the way he talks is also he's a narcissist, obviously, and of course, a malignant narcissist. There's a form where it's not so bad. But then it can lead to inferiority complex without affecting other people. But let's see, what was it? Where was the synopsis? Yeah, but it's not synopsis. This is better than. Let's see, malignant narcissism, hypermanic temperament, and dementia. Well, malignant narcissistic personality disorder, that's obvious. This is also what causes his stance on Russia versus Ukraine. The rest I don't really care about. In any case, such people should not be allowed in politics. So how will it end? I don't know. It could have ended already after 2 years. If not, Russia had these vast stocks of Soviet equipment. It could have ended if Russians were not so weak and would stand up to this psychopath. But these things are going on, and it could have ended if more support had been given from the start by Ukraine by the USA and by Europe. But as I predicted, the Russian army was losing, and the losses were exactly such that it was only through those old Soviet stocks and refurbishing them that they could continue. And now that these are finished, there's nothing of value approximately left in those no good old tanks, etc. It's really at the end because Russia cannot create new good equipment quickly enough, but also not at all in certain areas. They can't create all of what they need. They're not self-sufficient. They claim that about 2014, the sanctions are good for Crimea. So for example, companies could not invest in Crimea. Companies outside Russia. That was not allowed. And sanctions are good. We become more self-sufficient. 2 years later or so, I read exactly the same thing on the Dutch news, nos.nl. But nothing had changed. They weren't self-sufficient. And the same here with Russia in other areas. They're not self-sufficient. The only thing they're doing is trying to circumvent sanctions. Yes. Read as evidence for his diagnosis, obviously. But you can also look at just his speech pattern, for example. In any case, that's it for now. I don't, prediction, Trump could flip. So you don't know what's going to happen. But if Trump will withdraw support and Ukraine does not accept, and they should not accept the mineral deal, but I would say they could accept the mineral deal, and then just if they see that the opportunity is good enough and they're not getting enough from the USA, just say, yeah, we're not going to hold to that agreement, just as you did not hold to your what you agreed to in 1994 to protect us from what a nuke might have protected us against. We will have to see. Predicting the future is very difficult, but without Trump giving Russia in some way support, they will go bankrupt and lose the war fairly quickly. They just don't have the resources anymore, and the economy is in a really, really bad state, and it's a war economy. That's it for now. Bye.